My name is Kurt Looyens. I'm a founding partner of Dolya Consulting and a co-founder of ID Clear. I've been more recently also been the CEO of 2 exchanges here in Gibraltar, crypto exchanges. And in my old life, I've been a banker. So when Pete asked me over the phone, like, hey, do you like to host this panel about diversity, my eyebrows rose for a bit, I should say, sorry for my English. Why? Because, hey, this is bankers. 25 years of banker, a very traditional world, pinstripe suits, old boys club, all that kind of stuff which you know about, a very male society, and I have to go and talk about diversity. But again, I love diversity, and again, I have a great panel for it as well. Diversity is quite often in the small things, by the way, right? And I don't know if some of you have noticed, I don't think any of you have noticed, except for Mary, I'm wearing 2 different shoes today. I'm wearing a blue shoe and I'm wearing a brown shoe. And actually it gets worse. I'm wearing one sock here, another sock here. That's also diversity. It's freedom of how you express yourself whilst you're doing stuff. Nobody noticed when I walked through Main Street, but again, it's also diversity. I have a great panel here. Different hairstyles, different backgrounds, different nationalities, male, female, whatever you like to. So again, go and introduce yourself. Mary, you first.
Right. Hi, everybody. My name is Mary Camacho. I'm the CEO of Holo, Holo Hosting, and we're the creators of Holochain, which is a distributed application framework for building applications that aren't all about money, actually. So while we're here at a crypto event, we're really more about distributed web. So glad to be here.
Okay, so my name is Lyudmyla Kortelyova. So I'm a Director and Chief Compliance Officer for the Gate.io here in Gibraltar. And as you probably know, Gate.io is one of the top cryptocurrency exchanges in the world. And I've been in Gibraltar for nearly 2 decades. And I started my career in banking. And then I thought, oh, not much innovation there. So then we started in Gibraltar. It was time that the online gaming came on, and we had to do all the regulations and everything. And it was like, oh, that's something interesting. We can create, innovate, and do. So, okay, I've done that. Then kind of, okay, not much innovation happening there. And then the crypto came along. So, oh, that's really a new thing. And a new kid on the block, let's try it. So I've been in crypto since 2017, and I'm still there and still enjoying.
So hi everybody, I'm Paul Owen. I'm the founder of Recruitblock. We're a niche Web3 blockchain crypto recruitment and talent management company. A lot of our clients are based here in Gibraltar, but we also work with other businesses in Spain, in the UK, and increasingly in other parts of the world, the Middle East and Asia. My first sort of touch point with crypto was back in 2017. Started working with a client here in Gibraltar, and you know, off the back of that and learning a bit about blockchain from a developer friend, it had a sort of fairly natural appeal to me as somebody who started their career as a chartered accountant. You know, the idea of a ledger, transactions that were immutable, that resonated. So Recruitblock was born in sort of 2018, and that's a little bit about us and my backstory.
Thank you, Paul. There's one thing we realized today. We are the last session of the entire conference. The graveyard session, they call it sometimes, right? So we like to keep things a bit active today, and we like to make you move also a bit. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hands a few times today to ask questions about particular topics. The experts, you're the experts, will try to give you more explanation about. So let's just do a first trial to get going. Who thinks Pete did a great job in organizing this conference these 2 days? Okay, Pete, you have a full score there, so great. And I do agree, by the way, with you. Second question, who likes my socks? Okay, that's already half-half, okay. Fine, we get going, we get to business now. Let's go back in time. 2008, 31st of October. BTC white paper being launched. January thereafter, the first block being mined. If we go back and drawing lessons at that moment in time from the financial recession, which was there, the Great Recession as it's so called, crypto was designed to empower individuals and to give them access to more economic opportunities without having to rely solely on banks and governments anymore. Fast forward to today, a lot has happened since, right? Crypto has definitely been breaking the bias, has been stimulating change, has been trying to provoke, has been trying to empower people also. But at the same time, the DNA of the inner DNA of the industry has been to reject status quo, very much so. At the core of all that is a technology, the decentralized ledger technology, which basically is stimulating a decentralized approach and therefore also an empowerment of people and accelerating diversity, you could say. Right? Do we agree or don't we agree? So the question will be there, is this true in practice actually so far? Do you believe blockchain as a technology, as a concept, has really so far adequately delivered on its promise to empower people and to accelerate diversity? Who believes that? Very few, I would say. The panel. Mary, you're nodding your head.
I was nodding my head, but also considering that the way that my organization and all the people that I work with came to the work was a little different because they weren't inspired particularly by blockchain.
They don't like you saying this, apparently.
I guess not. Or by Bitcoin. It was more sort of like things that were happening in parallel to the sort of technical creations that were going on around distributed web technologies and looking at what was happening with platforms and how that wasn't kind of delivering on the democratization of the internet that had been promised in the early days. So the folks in my sphere were looking more at, look at how Git works. Not GitHub, but Git. Look at how some of the things that, made file sharing work that then got shut down. How could these technologies be put together to some better use that was more social oriented? That's where a lot of the juice was in our group. And so I don't know that I have.
So it's more techie than you say?
What's that?
It's more techie, you say?
Well, it was more tech and it was more social coordination, which blockchain talks about and gets at, but so much of it is so in the context of, and what drives the economy of it is the relationship of how it is a form of money. And so I feel almost out of my depth answering your question is kind of what I'm saying.
Which is fine. Lyudmyla.
I think it's the technology.
Keep it close.
Sorry? Yeah. I think the technology is deeply interconnected with the society and how, the technology came as a need, right, of the society, of more decentralization, of more diversity and more innovation. And what I think is that it's not just we need to look at it in technology, but we need to applicability and how it can change our world, even the way we work.
So blockchain is a means, not a goal, you say?
Yeah.
Right?
You can hear, no?
Paul?
Yeah, I would agree. I think if we're looking at technology where we are, advocating, the certain, benefits that it can bring in terms of inclusion, decentralization, then, I think it's fairly sort of incumbent upon us as advocates of that to think about how that also applies to our organizations and the ways that we work too as well. The relationships that we have between, in the traditional sense, employer-employee too as well. If we are, if we're advocates of one, we should really be thinking about how, as organizations, we apply that internally too as well.
It's a nice bridge to my next question, actually. Thank you, Paul. I mean, let's peel the onion a bit further, I would say. If you talk about blockchain technology, you talk to people quite often, you get rather quickly to the topic of cryptocurrency prices. And we all know why, of course, because they're very volatile, and they go up and they go down, and people are impacted, and so on. But actually, if you go back to, again, that white paper in the early days, and the goals of blockchain, it's not about the cryptocurrency prices, right? That's a effect of all that. It's much more about the long-term change which we, as people, as societies, as organizations, will have in terms of how we interact, how we transact, and how we collaborate. That's what it's about, blockchain. So if you think about it, that perspective, it's much more about the organizations, the people which drive the technology, than the technology as such. Quite often when you debate with people, you hear stuff like, Bitcoin doesn't care about the color of your skin. Or things like, blockchains are based on math, so they're flawless in terms of their processes. Which is true in a way, but it's also a naive perspective, I could think so. Because actually it doesn't do away with the fact that actually a blockchain is built on a platform which is built by people which have a goal to reach by building that blockchain. So my point there is, and the question I would have also is, it's more about organizations. Do you believe that crypto and blockchain businesses are effectively promoting a culture of diversity on the work floor, and more so than traditional companies? So I repeat my question there. Do you believe that blockchain organizations are promoting on the work floor a culture of collaboration, of diversity, of inclusion, and more so than traditional companies? Who believes that? Okay, it's roughly the same people, probably a bit more. This is more into your wheelhouse, I think, Mary, than the previous one.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know that I have the expertise to talk about what everybody in the industry is doing, but for us, it's been an interesting journey and challenge to operate because the workforce, the team members with us, they have strong opinions about how things should work internally. There is not, there's not an acceptance of sort of any form of just top-down. My title might say CEO, but in some ways we laugh at it. It's a bit of a joke because of the way we operate. And that was true in other companies that I had before this, and I think some of it is that like-minded folks who are trying to make the experience of work better tend to keep working together and creating communities together. And I think with crypto, some of that has happened too. There's a lot of self-selection into who wants to work for these kinds of organizations. So I mean, I think it's likely that a lot of the organizations are functioning different than in the mainstream, but I'm not sure that it will carry over just because crypto becomes more mainstream. That's still a to be determined about that for me.
Thank you, Mary. So I can talk from maybe my personal experience. I mean, I am very big advocate for diversity and inclusion in the workspace and building teams in that way. But currently, for example, what our workspace setup and workforce and Gate is, we are literally we go with the industry, and when somebody asks us where is your where is the decision made, we're completely decentralized. We are in all countries in the world. We are all different nationalities, absolutely different backgrounds, different skill sets, and that I believe that when you have you bring in this uniqueness of your peculiar skill sets and your experiences from completely different parts of the world and different backgrounds, that make your organization strive. So you don't need to be specific and only looking people in this location. You want just to get the best talent, whatever it is in the world.
Is that different from traditional companies?
Sorry?
Is that different from traditional companies?
I think it is. I think it's...
Why?
For traditional companies, they mainly look like your people being present in one place. They're easily, maybe they think it's
So it's about the way of working, the remote part, and you say...
Yeah, so it's the other part. So a part being on all different parts of the world. We also promote whatever. You want to work remotely, fine. You want to work in the office, fine. Whatever is best for you to strive. We also provide like the spaces systems, charts, where everyone can express his ideas and contribute, which is amazing. And I personally experienced that. Like, we have like all the, let's say, compliance people all over the world, and everyone has a different view and bringing it to it. So I think this is really helps innovation and helps to strive. And it's, for example, very different what I experience from other industries I worked in. So.
Paul, you're in the HR business, so you see this very well, right? So how would you define diversity, first of all?
I think, in terms of diversity, you can look at it at a very simplistic level of, an individual, personal DNA plus life experience plus social context. What does that mean for a business? I think, as a business, whether you're a startup or whether you've scaled, then it's having the ability to see difference, it's having the ability to accept difference, and then build that into the way that your organization operates, so that you as an organization achieve what you're looking to achieve more effectively and more efficiently.
Mm. Is it also a male-female thing which plays in this business? It's a sensitive topic, by the way, right? I know, but again, we should address those topics as well. I come from a banking background, like I said, a men's bastion at the time. And I know in my last years, they were promoting mainly women to get to the top, which I think is a good thing, but it's also playing catch-up. And it created a bit of a sphere which was very double. On the one side, people liked it. At the same time, also, it didn't do justice to those women always, because they felt like, yes, you get it because actually you're a woman. How in crypto?
Sorry to jump. I think it shouldn't be defined artificially. You know, we shouldn't define diversity artificially. Oh, we need to see, and let's hire, because we don't have a lot of male, let's hire more, or female, or we have from that background or that. As I said, it has to be equality. It needs to be, you are best at your job. It doesn't matter where you're coming from, where you're male, female, and so on. So I think, I personally think the crypto environment is much progress in that. Like, if you're referring like to banking.
Well, you two are here. You're examples, right?
Yes, we are here, and as I said, it's the same with different nationalities. It's really, really defined. So sorry.
Mary, you're dying to say something.
Yeah, definitely. I don't. It's a technology company. We're mostly all technology companies. There are issues of, like, whether there's more males or females. It's the same as almost in other industries. Now, how you go about addressing that, I mean, there's 100 different ways, and it's no different from a crypto company than it is to any other kind of company. But I agree, doing it artificially, like you have to have a certain kind of hire for diversity, I think that's a little crazy. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have policies to put prioritization on where you do your searches, where you do your postings, how you review what you're saying about your organization, so that you know that you're actually attracting people. But at the end of the day, just like anywhere else, you have to hire people with the right skills in the right places to do the right roles. And we all want the right people for the right fit. It's just, are you willing to look at yourself? Are you willing to critique your process to find out whether your process is putting, the pressure to not have diversity come in? And we like to talk about it, and you kind of did in many ways, Lydia, about it's a cognitive diversity as much as anything. And it has to also relate to, well, who's your audience? Who are your stakeholders? Who are you selling your services for your company to? Because you have to understand them, and if you don't have people that are of them, you don't. And I think some folks are talking about gaming were right, spot on, around bringing in people from the stakeholder communities. It's key.
Talking about your audience, I think it's a good bridge again. I mean, quite often you see people working in different parts of the world and dealing also with different audiences from different parts of the world as well. Your clients are in particular countries. Do you feel it should be a bridge between those two? Actually, it should be similar, or do you like more diversity there as well?
I mean, I think it's with product development, you have to take it into consideration. If you're building products, you have to understand what your users are expecting, and if you don't understand them culturally, or there are differences. That's why we do UX research on these things. Now, some of it goes beyond that and becomes more universal, and that's great, but not all of it.
How's that working, Gate.io?
So you mean based if they're specific on the clients?
Yeah, there's
right?
a cultural diversity also there, right? But it's also being close to your audience in terms of understanding the needs of those audiences in those markets where you're active. Quite often you have a global business, and it's all being run from one part, which might be a mismatch because you don't understand the logic of a particular audience.
That's exactly. I think also that also drives, because we are a global and decentralized company. We also have clients, and that also drives. That's why maybe we are already so diversified company, because we. Going to that markets where we operate, of course, we also when we applying people, they can apply, but mostly would be apply from that market, because it's more your specific skill set would be there, right? If you are, let's say, from Lithuania, right? And we're going on the market in Lithuania. Well, of course, everyone else is welcome, but the people probably not artificially, but naturally fit with the skill set who are from that country. However, this is if you literally customer-oriented, customer understanding things, but there are certain things like pure technology or pure HR or anything like that. You don't have, we have, our HR is like in Portugal, and we have no base there. Right? But it's just because we get the best talent there. And one person of HR, another is in UK, another is in another part of the world. And it's completely not related to even these people would serve the specific in the country. So.
Talking about talent, Paul, I mean, how do you find the right talent in this business?
I think we all know there are certain skill sets that are very highly in demand, whether that's developers, whether that's people in Gibraltar, for example, as a regulated jurisdiction, people working in compliance. I think companies need to be taking, if they haven't already done so, then they need to be taking a look at as Mary said, having those internal systems in place where if you're looking to try to attract talent from as wide audience as possible, you're looking at things like how you market your roles, how you advertise your roles, making sure that the language and the tone within those is as inclusive as it possibly can be. We've touched upon gender. We can open up a whole possibility too in terms of neurodiversity too as well as an example. And there are segments of the talent market there that companies don't naturally or automatically consider.
Do you also see an age cliff there, for instance? I mean, if I look at myself, I'm old in HR terms. I'm, let's say, old school as well, sorry. So you might see actually a lot of new people, youngsters coming in, which are very excited about the space. But at the same time, you will need both. Because you need also the gray hairs and a bit of the balance in there to make the business grow in the right direction with the right governance around it. So how do you motivate those people?
Sorry, for conjecture. I would say we look at you not as being old, but have an experience.
Thank you. I'll buy you a drink afterwards.
No, I think the point that you raised around age is, a great point. There will be people who will be looking to work in this space or are looking to work in this space for whom, they're almost native, to this space. There are other people of an older generation whom that isn't the case. You need the blend of that experience, of course. You've got somebody who's native, and I think it was alluded to a little bit on one of the previous panels where said about having researchers coming into the business who are of an age where they've grown up with gaming, and they can add value, of course, but a blend of age in the same way that a blend of gender, a blend of neurodiversity, adds value.
It's interesting talking about diversity inside the organizations. I would say one of the biggest challenges that I experience in my current organization, and it is global, we've got people on almost all continents and all things, but our leadership structure, like I said, it's not top down, but there's definitely leaders, right? There's people who are more influential. There's people who are doing more of some of the strategic work, more than some of the other people who are doing the doing of the work. And I find it very, the age grouping of that is too much the same, and that's something that I think is that we actually need to address internally, because what it does is it has even an internal organization, no matter how large, because we're not huge, we're 30-some, 40-some people, but you stop really being able to kind of grok what the experience is for those who are older or younger, I think, because you don't have the same life pressures on the work. So I think that's like a form that we don't talk about in terms of age, and it has to do with how leadership and influence works inside organizations.
Well, you talk about structure, which I think is an interesting topic as well, because it can help growth, but it can also hinder growth, right?
And what we found is that the tooling that was out there at the time, that to some degree still is out there, it's really good for creativity, it's really good for innovation, but it's not always good for delivering something to the market. And so there's like a blend, and we really try to
And there's also regulators, by the way, which like you to structure things, right? There's also regulators, by the way, which like you to structure things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're working on different aspects of how to play with those forces.
Maybe a last question about organizations. I mean, quite often I've seen in my career that people also take a motivation from a deeper goal a company has. Not just the business reaching targets, but are we doing good for the world at large, which is a bit of a soft topic, but at the same time, I do believe crucial in getting your troops together also. Actually, I would like the question first to the audience also in that perspective. Do you believe, again, that organizations in crypto today have done sufficiently enough good for the world today? Who says yes? Well, not yet is for sure the answer there, but nobody says actually. I see only one hand, so wow. That's quite striking, I must say so. A bit like this. So what do you guys think about it? Or ladies, I should not say guys, by the way, right? Because you're...
Yeah, I mean, from in Gate.io, I think we do something. We have internship program from November last year, where we, encourage anyone who wants to participate in internship and be part of the community, learn things. So you don't need to have any background, any qualification, anything to join it. And we had enormous response from the students, from young people joining it. And I think this is our way of contributing to the community, into people learning, giving them chance to learn, to be a part of something, and to learn the technology and to understand it. So that's the part I think we're trying to do, at least.
Paul?
Yeah, organizations, I suppose, I go a little bit back to the point that I made at the beginning when we're advocating a technology that is about inclusion, access, and the like. Then having organizations having those entry points for people, pathways for people, into the organization, and once they're in the organization too as well, obviously looking outside of your organization too as well. I think there's a lot happening in the space where there are really people with strong, motivated, ideological, you could almost say, views of where we as a space should be driving wider benefit to communities that may not necessarily have been the traditional touch points of businesses in Web 2, say, for example.
Okay, I'd like to ask one question about the future also, because I get a signal we're almost done. The metaverse, we've heard it before, right? Can you imagine next year we're here, not in a real form, but actually in an avatar form, and having a conference? I don't know if you would like it, Pete, because again, it might be easier to organize, by the way, because you don't need all this anymore. But at the same time, the metaverse, my view is that, okay, it's still very confused out there, and I think we've heard of the previous debate also, but at the same time, this could be potentially a technological equalizer, right? Because it allows, and again, first of all, you have network effect. It means you need to have inclusion and diversity and equity of all involved there, otherwise it doesn't work. At the same time, if you do so, you can actually go beyond yourself, and people sometimes need this, and therefore can be an equalizer in terms of how you can stand up, which people sometimes don't dare to do so, which I think is a huge potential, we didn't discuss yet in the previous conversations, but for a HR perspective, for a diversity perspective, for a talent acquisition perspective, is enormous, I would say so. And I see you nodding.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it has huge potential in all those areas that you've mentioned. From an organizational point of view, our organizations now, should they, if they're not already, be starting to look at this and thinking, well, how do we look to leverage that as a point of differentiation in terms of talent acquisition. Look, I don't know what that holds in terms of the future, but if it's going to be an ever increasing part of our lives, it's certainly going to be an ever increasing part of the lives of people half my age who are going to be entering the world of work soon. So just a thought, our organizations are looking at that. Should they be starting to look at that as a differentiator for them, if nothing else, in terms of talent attraction in what we all know is a hugely competitive market?
At the same time, the irony of things could be that actually those which need it the most don't have access, right? Because there's a digital divide in the world still there, of those which have access to digital means to access that, and those who are not. And those who need the most actually don't have access quite often.
Well, building tech doesn't get away that humans are building the code and we're writing in our values into the code. So that's going to continue to happen. If our values change, then our experiences online will change. But the thing about the metaverse and what we're doing, if we can talk about it like what they were saying in the event earlier, which is whether or not it's Web3 and all of that, or having the sort of incentives of things. But isn't the virtualized experience that we've been having to some degree the metaverse too? It's just not the game side of it or the Web3 side of it. The last 2 years during, first of all, as a company that's always been global and distributed, everything we do is using technology, video technology. We've used Mozilla's avatar spaces to run meetings, all sorts of those different things. And we're all going to just keep experimenting with this stuff until it starts feeling right and feeling as like something that we want to invest more of our company resources on, because it has the teams work better. So I think things are coming, I think things are changing, but I don't know if it's going to be because it's decentralized or because it's centralized or anything like that. I think it's going to be what actually gets the job done.
It's probably a whole new debate for next year, I would say. So my conclusion would be is that blockchain is just more than technology. It's not only about technology. There's a lot more to it. A lot has been done, but there's more to do for sure as well. And I think we're all change agents, right? We have to do this from within. We are the people which carry this forward, and we'll see you back in the metaverse next year. Thank you.